Hi, so you want to learn about applying ceramic coating to your wheels at home? Well, stay tuned because we're going to go into all of the details you need to know to do it yourself. Hi, I'm Todd Cooperrider with ESOTERIC. As I said, we are here today to basically put together a definitive how-to video on ceramic coating your wheels. There's a lot of information out there about it. We just want to cut through some myths and bring you the exact information you need to do it right and get the most out of your coating. So what we have here today, I've got a HRE, really cool, HRE R101 lightweight. These just came in for the project ZR1 that we're working on. But it can be an aftermarket wheel, it can be an OEM wheel, it could be something brand new, it could be something used. You want to coat it to make cleanup easier. That's why we put coating on wheels. Brake dust, not only does it look bad, but it can be corrosive on the wheels. By applying a ceramic coating to it, it makes cleanup much, much easier, particularly you get some of the German brands that produce a lot of brake dust, but it's also easier on the wheels, less chance of any of that corrosive material etching down into the finish. Okay, so we established why we want to coat. Let's talk a little bit about the process and everything you need to do it at home. First things first, the best way to coat your wheels, like we have here, is completely off of the car, so you have full access to the inner barrel. Can you do it on the car with just the faces? Sure, absolutely, but really the inner part is what gets the most dirty. So if you have the ability to safely take the wheels off, that's the best way. Most people are going to be doing it one wheel at a time. And while you have them off, if you've got a finished or painted brake caliper, you can coat the brake calipers the exact same way that you're doing the wheels and with the exact same tools and chemicals. Speaking of chemicals, let's start off with the cleaning process, because one of the most important aspects of coating is cleaning the wheels. And we need to get these things squeaky clean. The cleaner the surface is, the better the bond. The better the bond, the more durability, more performance that we get out of the coating. So we want to make sure that we spend plenty of time on cleaning. So you'll start off with a normal wash on your car and then go into wheel cleaning, and you're going to start using something like GYEON iron here. It helps neutralize, decontaminate in a chemical fashion any of the iron deposits that may be on the wheels. So now that you've got that deep cleaned, you may be left with little pieces of rubber or tar inside the wheel. That's where you get a tar remover. Go in there, let that soak, clean all that stuff off. Once again, we want to try to keep it as clean as possible, and we're doing this both to the face of the wheel and the inner barrel. Now that we have all that done, we're going to go with something like GYEON Prep here. What that does a final finish to make sure any residues of any cleaners are off of the surface. And even if it's a brand new wheel, like this brand new HRE here, we still want to go in and use something like Prep. We get that question all the time. Hey, Todd, I got a brand new set of wheels. Do I need to do the Prep stage? Yes, absolutely you do. I was working on some of these wheels earlier this morning, and you can see handprints in it or greasiness, or when the tires were mounted, just stuff on the surface that needed to completely come off. And if I didn't do that, then the bond is not going to be as good with it. So once you have all that done, you're ready to go into coating, but we're not really ready for that yet. I want to actually take you through the process of using a Prep, because I think a lot of people out there don't use enough of it, and you can end up with a situation that you're not going to get a good bond. So when we're working with Prep, we have ourselves a couple of towels, really per wheel, that you're going to do, because what happens is your towel starts getting loaded up with whatever's on the surface, and you could eventually just spread it all around. We want to completely remove it from the surface. So I'm going to do a couple of processes with it. My first one, I'm going to be very liberal with the application. I want to saturate that surface and give it a moment to start breaking anything down that may be on there. So I'm going to take my towel, I'm going to go in, I'm going to clean everything up, and as you're wiping, you can typically see on the surface If there's like handprints that are kind of showing up, you have some, grease or oil there, you want to get all that off of there. So I'm going to do that on the entire wheel. Then I'm either going to flip my towel over to a clean surface, or I grab a secondary towel. This time I'm going to do a little bit lighter application of prep, and I'm going to go back in and I'm going to try to just wipe everything off of the surface one more time, and I can look into all the areas where I'm wiping to see if it's showing any kind of residue, greasy, oily, whatever kind of residue underneath. If I still see some, I can go back for a third time. But the big thing is here, you don't want to skimp. You can use too little of prep, but you can't use too much. So I'm going to do all of the inner barrel. I'm going to do the back of the spokes. I'm going to spin the wheel around. Fortunately, we have this handy little tool that we made here to make it easy, and I'm going to do the same. On these wheels right here, there's a lot of cutouts, there's a lot of areas for stuff to sit. I want to go in and I want to make sure that I get that completely clean. This face we're going to do a couple of times in prep. Once again, we're going to fold our towel a couple of times to make sure that we're constantly working with clean sections of the towel, or we're grabbing a secondary towel just to make sure we're not reintroducing any kind of oils on the surface. So now that we have all of that aspect done, let me just move a couple things out of the way here. And we have 3 different coatings that we're going to talk about today. And one of the things to remember is each coating is a little bit different in how they apply, how they remove, how much time you need to let it set between coatings. So if you're using something different from these 3 here, make sure you check with the manufacturer what the best recommended practices are for the timeliness. Because worst case scenario, you let it sit on too long, it kind of turns into glue on the surface, and you're going to have a heck of a time getting it off. But what we're looking at today, we've got Stance Rim Coat from KAMIKAZE, we've got Rim from GYEON, and we have Mose from GYEON. And I'm going to talk about some of the intricacies of each of them. Basically what you're looking at in terms of a good, better, best scenario, you're starting with a rim, you're jumping up to Mose, and then you're finishing up with Stance on the higher end of it. So it depends on what you're wanting to get, what kind of durability you want out of it, what your budget is, how much you want to spend on products. It's going to help you determine which of these you decide to go with. So with the coatings, like with a Stance Rim Coat, it comes with some applicators in the box, and then both the Mose and the rim, they come with a little applicator block and applicator cloths. There's about 5 of them, I believe, in each package. And then another one of the favorites, a long-term favorite of ours, we just take one of our wax applicators, we take it brand new, cut it into force, and this makes it really easy. You saw on the face of these wheels, all the intricacies of it. This gets down in there. You would never be able to get a block like this into the intricate areas of the front part of the wheel. This is great for the back or inner barrel, but not so much on the front. So I would recommend having something like this around. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. So now getting into the coating. First of all, let's talk about Stance Rim Coat from KAMIKAZE. With this, after you apply it to the surface, you want to give it 5 to 10 minutes to set up before removal. Once you look at that surface, it'll start getting like little almost look like little beads of water in there. That's when you know it's gone through that chemical reaction, it's ready to remove. But once again, 5 to 10 minutes. If you're looking at hotter, humid days, you're going to bring that time down a little bit. You get a little bit cooler days, or you're in an air-conditioned garage like we are here, we can stretch it out a little bit longer. Now, you want to do multiple coats of this, which is recommended. You got the wheels off, you might as well. You want to wait 1 to 2 hours between coats to get the best durability. If you do it too quickly, you're not going to realize all of the durability out of the product. So 5 to 10 minutes between application removal, 1 to 2 hours between first coat and second coat. Now, GYEON rim here, this one's a little bit different. This one you want to work basically like in quadrants. So the inner barrel, you want to work in force. The outer face, you want to work in force. This, once you put it on, about 10 to 15 seconds after applying, that you want to remove it. So much, much quicker on the removal process. If you let it sit too long, it can start to get sticky and gummy and become a little challenging to remove. Then with rim, if you want to do multiple coats, it's best to wait 4 hours between layers that you put on it. So you'll have to break up your day or the detailing that you're doing accordingly. If you're looking at GYEON Mose, you get a little bit more time with this. This is going to be in at 30 to 45 seconds between applying and removing. Then you want to do multiple coats, which once again is recommended with Mose. You want to wait about an hour. If you do it too quickly, you could lose a little bit durability because the solvents in there start breaking down what you've already put on. So let it set up a little bit before you come back and put your second coat. So real important information. You can see there's a big difference from one coating to the next, how it goes on, the amount of time, and the amount of time between layers of it. So make sure that you read those instructions carefully. Okay, now we've gone into that. You came here to see how the coating is applied. And it's a really simple process. And for this one, since we're going to work on the barrel, I'm going to use this applicator here. Now, if you're using these, one of the things to remember, it comes with about 5 of them. You want to swap them out frequently. You don't want one applicator to do all 4 wheels. You want to, one for 2 wheels or so, and then swap it out, because what happens, it starts getting a little bit saturated, and then it will start getting grabby as you go to apply it. So by keeping that fresh or keeping this fresh, it's going to go on easier and it's going to come off easier. So what we've done here, we have got our stance rim coat. We've got our nice little dropper here that we sell separately. And I'm just going to put an even layer of it onto the applicator. And then as I'm applying it, I'm going to do it in straight lines. And I want to make sure that I am getting complete even coverage as I do it. And you can look at the surface and you can tell, where you're getting, where you're not getting. And you can also tell when the coating is starting to run a little bit thin on your applicator. In that case, just put a little bit more on there. Go back in, completely apply it to the surface. And we're going to get every bit of the inside of the wheel here. I'm going to get the outer lip. And I'm going to get the back side of the spokes as well, because all that stuff gets dirty. Once again, I can do it a little bit more quickly here because I have this nice roller set up. You at home, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Just be careful that you don't knock your wheels over. Depending on the wheel configuration, you could easily scratch them. So I'm getting the outer lip, get all of that done. I'm going to go right over top of my wheel weights that I have on here. Not going to affect anything. Just want to make sure I get that even coverage. So what we'll do is we're going to kind of fast forward here. You don't really need to watch me apply it to every single part of it. And then once I'm done applying in here, we're going to come back and we're going to show you the removal process. Okay, so now we've let our wheels set for 5 to 10 minutes. Once again, that's on the stance rim coat. The other ones are going to be rim 10 to 15 seconds, Mose 30 to 45 seconds before you do the removal of it. So now that we've got it on here, it's starting to sweat, give those little beads I was telling you about. We're going to go in and do our removal process. Some people think, well, why are you removing the coating that you put on there? Well, what's left over is going to come off in the towel. During that time, it has set up and it is bonded to the surface. So as I'm removing, I'm not removing stuff that's bonded to it. It's just the extra that's on there, which is why we don't want to go so thick that it's running, because all you're doing is wasting product at that time. So we take 2 different towels. Why 2 different towels? Well, that way it's easy to remember which one is your number 1 towel, which one's your number 2 towel. We're going to start off the wiping process with our first towel. That's going to get the majority of the residue off of there. Then we're going to come back with our secondary towel to remove all the last bit. So as I go, I'm just going to do small circular motions, and really no pressure at all is required, just enough to wipe the surface down, and you'll be able to look at it and tell where you have removed it. And if you see these wheels right here, these are a satin finish, and I know we'll get questions on that. Can you use this on satin finish wheels, or can you use it on matte wheels? Obviously the answer is yes. The coating is not going to turn it glossy. It will add a little bit of a richness to the finish, but you don't have to worry about your nice satin wheels automatically turning glossy. And the thing about these satin wheels and matte wheels, they have more of a tendency to stain, the way they're porous. So I couldn't imagine having them without having a coating on it, because they're going to be so much easier to maintain and they're going to look a lot better. So we'll go in here, get everything wiped with our first towel. Now we come back with our secondary towel, and we're just lightly buffing the surface to make sure the last of the stuff is off of there. Now, how do I know that for sure? Well, here's one thing that you want to make sure that you have got, is you have some kind of lighting. It can be as simple as a small flashlight like this. You can have your regular home flashlight, whatever kind of lights work well for you. You don't want to do this in a dark corner of the garage, because what can happen is if you have a little area where you didn't get it completely removed, once that hardens up and cures, that's what's called a high spot, and it's going to be a dark area. If you're dealing with a satin or matte finish wheel, you really can't go back in there and polish that off, because you can risk adding gloss to the finish of the wheel, is what you don't want. If you've got a normal wheel painted, not that big of a deal, but we want to avoid that. Another thing that we have got here, like our GYEON light, if you've seen the video on it, this is designed, it's a diffused light, and it helps us look at the finish to look for any kind of high spots to make sure that we've got no issues as we move forward. And that is going to be the process that we do on the inner barrel and the outer face. It's going to be the same. Take your time, do it right. Coatings for the wheels, they can last you a year, they can last you 2 or 3 years. Got to remember, wheels, they run higher temperatures. They get harsher chemicals that are going to be hitting them for cleanup. But if you've got coated wheels, you shouldn't have to use the harsh chemicals all the time. So it's going to vary in how much or how long it lasts, how you use it, how you maintain it, how often you drive the cars, are being tracked all the time. All those things come into play. That's going to dictate just how long the coating is going to last on the wheels. So now that we have them coated, we would wait an hour for this. We'd come back and do our secondary coat. Then once we go to put them back on the car, we just want to make sure that those wheels stay dry for that first 24 hours. After that, they can get wet. I would recommend not washing them for a week. Now, how about maintaining them afterwards? Your cleanup, you're going to find that first wash, the cleanup is much, much easier. Just a regular pH neutral soap, same kind of stuff that you would use for the body of the car. It's going to clean it up nicely. Now, for maintaining it afterwards, you can look at something like Super Sport from Polish Angel here. This is designed to be like a wheel coating light, we'll call it, and it works as a fantastic maintenance product for your coating, acts as that sacrificial layer. We've got video on this. Actually, all the products that we've talked about so far, we've got separate videos. So if you have any more questions on that, take a look at the videos. So, went over a lot of information, but hopefully that answers questions for you. You can see it is relatively easy to do. The most difficult aspect of it is getting the wheels off of the car safely and making sure that you get them torqued to specs afterwards when you put it back on. So any other questions that you may have about the process or about the coatings themselves, leave it in the comment section below. I'll be in there answering all the questions, and I'm happy to help out in any way possible. Hopefully now you've got a much better understanding of what goes into proper wheel coating, and you have the confidence to do it yourself at home.